So there are a lot of rumblings lately of the Nintendo Switch sort of, quieting down and sort of retiring and letting a new console take the reins. And I just sort of wanted to throw it out there and say no. The Nintendo Switch is not the Wii. The Nintendo Switch is definitely not the Wii U. It's not the GameCube, it's not the Nintendo 64, it's not the Super Nintendo, it's not the Nintendo, and it's definitely not the Virtual Boy or Game Boy Advance. It's a handheld. It's something that has a much longer lifespan than a regular, home console. And that's really what it is. It's a handheld that connects to your TV. It is not a home console. It is a cheaper alternative to everything else that is available, aside from like making a Steam account, which fair. But it's a cheaper alternative to all of the other consoles. It has worse specs, but again, cheaper, and it has Nintendo games. Which, yeah, that's Nintendo's shtick, but you know what that perfectly describes? That perfectly describes the Game Boy. You know, the Game Boy, the thing that lasted 12 years if you count its Pro version, which, yes, the Game Boy Color is in fact just a souped up Game Boy that has color. And people will say, oh, there's this huge library of exclusive games. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The DSi did the same thing. And you know what? So did the new 3DS. You know what the difference is? Those two came out not only really late in the console's lifespan, but really late in the console's lifespan when nobody was playing the console. Do you know what happened with the Game Boy? Pokemon came out. Pokemon came out, and they made exclusive games for the Game Boy Color, so everyone bought a Game Boy Color, so everyone developed for the Game Boy Color. There really isn't any other way to put it. The reason that it has such a huge library isn't because it's a separate console. It's because the Game Boy Color had Pokemon during Pokemania. That's really it. Like, there's no other reason. And we know, like, just looking at the three options that we have 3DS, DS, and Game Boy, we know that the Switch isn't like the 3DS, right? And we know the Switch isn't like the 3DS because the reason that the 3DS lasted 6 years is because it didn't do well and it was paired with the Wii U and they needed to get something out fast. So of course it was cut short. Didn't even quite make it to 6 years if memory serves. It was like 5 point something, 5 and some odd months. So of course the 3DS didn't last long. So the Switch is not like the 3DS. What about the DS? Well, by this point in the DS's lifespan, which was right up against the edge of the DS's lifespan before the 3DS took over, the DS was selling squat, even with the DSi, which not a lot of people really bought into. So that just leaves the Game Boy. And the Game Boy would have genuinely lasted more than 7 years, would have lasted like 8 years, if it weren't for Pokemon. They might have thrown out the Game Boy Color, maybe, and then a few people would have bought it, and like it would have been like one of those weird oddities, right? Like the new Nintendo Switch, which has like 3 games, or the DSi, which has like 5 games plus DSiWare. And I guess the new Nintendo Switch has, what was it, Super Nintendo games or something stupid? Eh. I don't know why they locked that behind the new Nintendo Switch, the old, or not new Nintendo Switch, new 3DS. The old 3DS, the original 3DS, could run Super Nintendo games. I don't know why they locked it behind that. That was just weird. But yeah, no. The the whole reason that the Game Boy lasted that long is because Pokemon came out and revitalized interest in the Game Boy in a way that, yeah, it wouldn't have otherwise. So what we're looking at isn't a 6 or 7 year lifespan. We're looking at a roughly 8 year lifespan, maybe 9, because the extension afforded to the Game Boy by the Game Boy Color, I don't think is necessarily going to happen with the Nintendo Switch. And just to get into sales numbers, every other home console for Nintendo sold well for 2, maybe 3 years, except the Wii U. That one didn't sell well ever. But every other console sold well for like 2 or 3 years, even some of the handhelds, 2 or 3 years. And then with the handhelds, it's sort of a gradual decline. And with the home consoles, straight into the ground, nobody's buying them anymore. And then like tiny bumps if they release like a Wii Family Edition or something that's cheaper. So people buy it because it's cheap. But I don't think that's going to happen. I really hope there's no Switch Family Edition that cuts out half of the features. Gross. But I do think that the Switch is going to last 8 or 9 years. I think toward the end we might get like a slightly upgraded Switch. It's not going to be phenomenal, right? But it's going to be upgraded. It's going to have some new gimmick attached to it, because the Game Boy Color obviously had color as the selling point. The DSi had the camera as the selling point, and the new 3DS had the second little nipple. I don't know what was the point of the new 3DS nipple. Was that like a it was like a little like second circle pad, except bad and weird. I never played a game that was only for new 3DS, so I genuinely don't know what that thing did. Please tell me. Anyways, yeah, it's all gonna have some sort of selling point, right? Where it's like, oh, this is the Switch, but it also has blank. I don't know what the thing's gonna be. Maybe it's gonna have a camera. I don't know. Maybe they're gonna do the DSi again. The Nintendo Switch Color. It's not just in color. It's in color too. It was so good they made a second one. Yeah, the new Nintendo Switch. It's gonna have a nipple. It's gonna have 2 nipples this time. I genuinely don't know what the point of the nipple was. Anyways, yeah, genuinely, the Nintendo Switch is gonna last for a while. It's not gonna die anytime soon. And the thing is, Nintendo since the beginning, like the insiders and also the people at Nintendo have always been saying, yeah, we want to make this last way longer than the usual lifespan. And that has shown, right? As I said earlier, every other console has had like 2 or 3 years of like growth and then plummets. The Nintendo Switch doesn't have that. It had like 4 years of growth and then it kind of started gliding down a little bit. Like it's not even that far below its peak right now, per year, which is bizarre, honestly, for Nintendo's usual sales pattern. And I think that gliding down is genuinely going to let them coast for a bit. And if they come out with new hardware, that's going to make it spike a little. And that means they can coast for even longer. Now, eventually, it is going to start plummeting. Eventually, most people who want a Nintendo Switch will have a Nintendo Switch. Sorry. But, like, it's going to be a while. And people are like, oh, but what else is gonna possibly come out, right? Well, we're still waiting on Metroid Prime 4. We're still waiting on both of the Wii U remasters for Zelda. We're still waiting on another Grezzo remaster for Zelda, which could be the other Game Boy Color games. We'll see. We're still waiting on a new Mario game, potentially a 2D one, maybe, I don't know. We're still waiting on just so many things. There are so many things we're still waiting on. Detective Pikachu 2. That's supposed to come out at some point. And as long as there's stuff that has yet to come out and things that could come out, like a new Donkey Kong Country, I feel like maybe, just maybe, yeah, the Nintendo Switch is gonna last. Like, sorry, it's gonna last. It's not going to be like massively long or anything. I don't think it's gonna last a decade. It might, but I don't think it is. But 8 or 9 years sounds about right to me. 2025, 2026. I could see that happening. Maybe sometime next year we'll get Grezzo remasters of some sort. The year after that we could get Wind Waker HD, and then the year after that Twilight Princess HD for Zelda. For Mario, this year we're getting Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, right? Next year we could get Mario Baseball, right? The year after that we could get some other Mario sports game like a Sports Mix or something like that. I can see the Mario sports games lasting for a bit. Here in a year or two, we could get another Mario Party, right? Next year we could get the next Paper Mario because the last one was in 2020. The one before that was in 2016. About 4 years each. And yeah, just in general, there's like a lot of things that we can count on coming out. Um, for example, there's probably going to be a Mario coming out later this year, or at the very least, the beginning of next year, because the Mario movie just came out. It's a smash hit. Sales are through the roof. Nintendo, is super happy about that, I would imagine. So, yeah, like why wouldn't they capitalize on that, and why wouldn't they plan on capitalizing on that, from the beginning? I can see that being the case. It's been a while since we had our last new experience with Mario platforming, which was Bowser's Fury a few years ago. I think 2 years ago, if I'm remembering correctly. Might be off on that. But yeah, um, because I think that was 2021. So I can definitely see a new like platforming Mario experience coming out of some sort. It could be something lame. It could be like a an enhanced port of 3D Land, right? Or like an enhanced port of like one of the other new soup games. But I don't think so. I think it's going to be something new. Might be 2D, might be 3D. I don't know. I would bet on 2D because it's been a while unless you count Mario Maker 2, and even then Mario Maker 2 was a few years ago. It was like what, 2019, I think? Something like that. It's been a while since our last 2D Mario. So that's going to come out at some point. Unless Mario goes on one of his snoozes and doesn't come back for like a decade, which does happen actually. It's happened once or twice where there's just not been a new Mario for a while. But hopefully that doesn't happen. But there's just so many like things here and there that could probably come out. Like I could see more Metroid than just Prime 4 being developed right now. I could see like a Star Fox game being in development. People have been talking about an F-Zero remaster for some time, and I don't know what the validity of that is, but you know what? Like, that would be, I think, a good way to bring it back. That's kind of like how they brought back Advance Wars, right? Or Famicom Detective Club, which they didn't really bring back because there's no new ones after it. Hopefully, they eventually make like another Famicom Detective Club. I think that would be interesting if they did that. But yeah, this was just sort of my rambling thoughts at what is it right now? Like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I'm gonna be up for a little bit after this, unfortunately, because I hate myself and I have a lot of things to do that I want done, like before Friday. But yeah, I had a bunch of Nintendo thoughts on the brain, mainly related to people being like, "Ah, the Switch 2 is just around the corner." I don't think it is. If anything new is around the corner, maybe it will be the Super Switch, the Switch, 1.5, the upgraded Switch, the Switch Color, the Switch Eye, the new Switch, the upgraded version of it. Would we count the Game Boy Advance SP? I mean, it has like backlight, which it's not more powerful, but it has a backlight, which I think is very very important. uh, and if we don't count the micro, that's the only upgraded version of the GBA. But then again, if we count that, we would have to count the Game Boy Light and the Game Boy Pocket and like the DS Lite and the what is it, the 3DS XL. Like I'm not gonna count all of those. Like those are like minor. That's like counting the OLED for the Switch. But anyways, this was fun getting all of these thoughts out. Maybe I should do this more often. I don't know. Right now, I'm working on finishing the editing, the audio recording and the editing for my Nuzlocke, which I finished before Easter. It's June. I need to get it out. I'm so sorry. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to start scripting and filming for my Star Trek project, which has a definite deadline. Um, it has a definite deadline, and I need to get it done by then. I don't know how strict I'm going to be for future years, because it is going to be a series, but I. It's going to be a big video. A big video. Like 9 movies and like two or 300 episodes of television. And it's just the first video. That's gonna be fun. If anybody who's watching this is interested in Star Trek, whether that be the original series, the animated series, the original series films, the Kelvin movies, uh, or Deep Space Nine, you'll be interested in this one because that's what I'm covering, and it's gonna be a big video. I don't know how I'm gonna I'm gonna get this done. Maybe parts of it will be recorded like this, where I don't have much of a script, and then I'll like go back and re-record it with like more of a focus. That way, I don't have to do any scripting, and it's not completely exhausting to do. But still, I have so many things to cover. Whew. We'll see how that turns out. Hopefully, it turns out good. I want to have the recording and editing of everything done like a week in advance, and then I can go in and put in like music if I want to. We'll see. Speaking of music, I still need to dig up some music to put in my Nuzlocke, and now I'm rambling. I'm so sorry. I'll stop the recording. Uh yeah. Actually, you've seen my shelf back there for a bit now. The plushies aren't mine. Or at least the ones on top aren't mine. But let me pick you up. Let me pick you up like you're the phone. Like you're the phone. So, if you want to see something completely just that destroys your soul, that kills you in your sleep, I have something to show you. So this is my Madden collection, and yeah, it's just as terrible as it sounds. Like look at this. Look at this. This is actually insane. This is an insane person thing. I don't even play Madden. I just think it's funny and I can usually get a game for $1. So I'm like, hey, what if I just bought as many Madden games as I could for like $20? And then, oops, a couple years later, I have this horrible, awful collection. And at this point, I'm like, the ones I'm looking for are like the new ones and the rare ones, essentially. So, anyone got Madden on the 3DO? Please don't say yes. I don't have the money. Oh. Anyways, oops, this took 20 minutes. It was supposed to take like 5. I'm so sorry. I should genuinely just press end on the recording instead of keeping going. Uh, so yeah, see you when I post the Nuzlocke, which should be maybe by the end of this week, depending on if I get it done by my deadline or not. So we'll see.